Okay, how's everyone doing? In this video, we are going to look at the SOL review PowerPoint for SOL standards 9 and 10. 9 having to deal with early Middle Ages Europe, and 10 having to do with trade routes and interaction, as well as Africa and Japan. Here we go. What led to the shattering of Roman stability and protection within Western Europe? Well, obviously, we've got many invasions from many different places. So the three Germanic invasions specifically. The three foundations of early medieval society are going to be Germanic customs, Roman heritage, and Christian beliefs. When we think of early Middle Ages Europe, I want you guys to understand that we are talking about primarily what is present-day France and Germany. So we're going to have the influences of Germanic tribes. We're going to have some Roman influences because it is part of the territory that used to be the old Roman Empire. And then we're also going to have Christian beliefs because Catholicism had spread to this area. With the decline of unified Roman authority over Europe, the authority of the Roman Catholic Church grew. What did the Roman Catholic Church provide Europe after the fall of Rome? A unifying force. With the empire, it's no longer around. We have the church now in its place. And where were Greco-Roman cultural achievements preserved during the Middle Ages? Monasteries. Alright, societal needs that were served by parish priests were religious, social, and political. And then two things carried by missionaries to the Germanic tribes were Christianity and the Latin alphabet. So the Germanic tribes will adopt Christianity and the Latin alphabet primarily. Now, which individual was anointed emperor by the Pope in the year 800 CE? And the answer is Charles the Great, or Charlemagne. Identify the Germanic peoples ruled over by the Charlemagne. They are primarily known as the Franks. Charlemagne was the king of the Franks. What type of governing system developed in Europe in order to provide security and protection at a local level? This is known as feudalism, or the feudal society. The aspects of feudal and mutual obligation were exchange of land for defense, or land and defense for military service, a percentage of crops, tax, and loyalty. So you have the king who's going to pass it down. It's going to get passed down, and land is going to keep getting passed down. Eventually the peasants will work it for food, the knights provide protection, the tenants-in-chief supervise, and the king just kind of sits there and be's the king. Alright, a parcel of land granted by a lord was known as a fief or a manor. They would get their titles from there. A person entered into a feudal obligation with a lord or a monarch was a vassal. And a peasant tied to a parcel of land was a serf. Serfs would wake up every day and work this land and might never venture away from it. The name of the stable, self-sufficient economic system of the Middle Ages was the manorial system. True or false, medieval manors had very lenient social structure. That is false. The manor system tied in very tightly with the feudal system. Alright, you had the lord, you were protected by the knights, and then you had all of the serfs living in town and around. Okay, very tied together, the two of them. The three major social classes of Middle Ages and their respective roles: clergy, nobles, and peasants. Clergy provided spiritual guidance, nobles provided protection and justice, and then peasants, agriculture and labor. Nobles' land and title was gained through inheritance. So your lord or your duke or your baron would pass his land and title on down to his son and son and son and so on and so forth. Roman culture in Western Europe was reestablished due to the alliance between the Franks and the Roman Catholic Church. How were the Frankish kings successful in expanding their territory? By military conquest and forced conversion to Christianity. And whose Carolingian Renaissance emphasized education, Christianity, and reinterpreted Roman culture? And that is Charlemagne, who was not only our first Holy Roman Empire, he led a Carolingian Renaissance, as he is known as a member of the Carolingian line of kings. Identify the territory included within Charlemagne's empire. We're going to have most of Western Europe, some modern-day France, part of Spanish and northwest Spain, northern Italy, western Germany, specifically Lombardy, Saxony, and the Danubian Plain. What was utilized to unite it? Churches, roads, and schools. Charlemagne built churches, built roads, improved upon schools throughout his empire, and that was part of the reason he was able to unite the land. And Charlemagne's empire officially split by the Treaty of Verdun. Peoples that settled into the following areas. In England, we had the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes will invade and settle, coming from northern Germany and Denmark across the North Sea. In Hungary, we're going to have the Magyars from Central Asia, and then in Russia, we're going to have the Vikings. As you can see, we have the Magyars coming from Central Asia into Hungary, and we have the Vikings coming from Scandinavia into Russia and many, many other places. And those are our invaders. What structures provided protection from invaders? Castles, manors, all of the above. And the effects of the Anglo-Saxon and Magyar and Viking invasions were disruption of trade, decline of towns, and they helped strengthen the feudal system because the lords and the knights could provide protection for the local peoples from these invaders. And that's a quick look at all of Standard 9, and we're going to move on to Standard 10, Eastern Hemisphere and trade patterns. Alright, our brown trade route there is the Silk Road, connecting Europe with the Middle East with India and China. We have our maritime routes, again connecting throughout the Indian Ocean. Northern European trade routes are going to connect the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea. We're going to have Western Europe connected by river and sea, not just overland trade. We're going to have the South China Sea route and Southeast Asia land routes connecting Southeast Asia. And then we're also going to have the Trans-Saharan trade connecting North and West Africa. Alright, so this is a series of trade patterns that are going to develop between the years 1000 and 1500 CE. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the main goods and resources coming from each location. West Africa provided gold. The Indian Ocean was going to be responsible for spices for our food. India, China, the Middle East, and later on Europe, not initially, are going to provide textiles. In case you've forgotten, textiles are cloth, fabric, things used to make clothing. China and eventually Persia later on are going to do porcelain, which is very fine pottery. The Baltic region provides us with amber. Let's identify the location where the following technologies are developed. We have paper is developed in China, and it's adopted by the Islamic civilization. Remember, their city of Baghdad is going to be a big paper producer, and it's going to be transferred to Europe eventually via the Byzantine Empire. We have new crops and techniques from India. We're going to get sugar. Paper money is going to come from China. Water mills and windmills are coming from the Middle East. We have the compass is coming from China. And then we have the lateen sail coming from India. Printing is developed in China. And then identify where the following religions originated and then spread. So Buddhism originates in northeast India. Hinduism originates in central India from the Aryans, and then Islam is going to obviously originate in the Arabian Peninsula. Buddhism is going to spread throughout Southeast Asia into China and eventually into Korea and Japan. Hinduism just kind of sticks near India. Islam's going to spread everywhere to West Africa, throughout Central Asia, into North Africa, and as well into Southeast Asia. Alright, let's take a look here. Our country in yellow there is Japan. That is Korea on that little peninsula there. Our body of water in between Japan and the mainland is the Sea of Japan. To the east we have the Pacific Ocean, and we have the East China Sea to the southwest. A group or chain of islands, Japan is known as an archipelago. That is a series of islands which are, generally speaking, usually volcanic in nature. They're created by volcanoes. How many main islands are there in Japan? And the answer is 4. There are many, many, many other small little islands that are considered part of the Japanese archipelago, but we refer to the 4 home islands. And the geography of Japan is mountainous, which, if you remember, mountainous implies tough to grow food. Alright, true or false? China was a major influence upon the culture of Japan. True. Which country did Chinese culture diffuse to Japan through? Obviously Korea, if you look at a map. And then identify major areas of Chinese influence. The Chinese had great influence in writing, architecture, and eventually the spread of Buddhism. The ethnic religion of Japan is known as Shinto. Alright, Shinto, yes or no, is a widespread religion. No, it is very much just in Japan, nowhere else. It coexists with Buddhism. They have some similar teachings. And the main factors of importance to remember in Shinto is they place an emphasis on natural features, forces of nature, and ancestor worship. The characteristic of state and imperial Shinto is that they viewed the emperor as being divine. So they viewed the emperor as a deity. Alright, real quickly, Africa. Here we go. River, Nile River. Remember with the Nile, the lower Nile River is to the north, the upper is to the south. Our river here in West Africa is the Niger River. And down in South Africa we have the Zambezi River and the Limpopo River. Our desert, I really hope we understand. This one is the Sahara Desert. When we talk about regions, this is the Ethiopian highlands down here at the upper Nile River, high land. Alright, the city of Timbuktu, located near the Niger River in West Africa. Great Zimbabwe itself was located between the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers, and the Indian Ocean is obviously to the east. And then hopefully we understand our trade routes throughout the Sahara Desert. Alright, following kingdom, Axum. You'll see it spelled both ways. King Ezana converted this kingdom to Christianity. Following empire there is Zimbabwe, located between the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers, the capital city is known as Great Zimbabwe. And our following empire here is going to be Ghana. The second one, Mali, a little bit larger, same area. And the third one here, Songhai. Again, a little bit larger. Again, the idea being that we are along the Niger River in West Africa, near Timbuktu. The most important trade of exchange for these empires was gold for salt. Which city served as a center of trade and learning for these empires? Timbuktu for Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires, as was gold for salt for them. And then identify the indigenous religion of many African societies in which inanimate religion or objects are believed to house spirits. This is known as animism. And many West African empires and civilizations are eventually going to convert to Islam. And Islam provides West African societies with a connection between religious and personal life and a common set of values. And that is standard 10. And that's all.